Greetings to all news lovers. Today we have an issue full of explosive news. It looks like Russia may join China in attacking Taiwan. The US and its allies are building an alternative to the Silk Road. And is America expanding its military superiority over China? All this and more in our weekly news headlines about China. But before we begin, let's remember that companies everywhere are collecting your personal information. Dozens, if not hundreds of companies you may have never heard of are hoarding your data, and it's unclear what they're doing with it. Incotme can help stop this from happening. I'll go into more detail at the end of this issue. One of the biggest companies collecting tons of your personal data without telling you what they do with it is TikTok. We all know that TikTok is suing over a recent US law that would force China to divest from TikTok or it would be banned. But it turns out that in their petition, TikTok claims that they can't opt out of China because the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want them to. I'm sure this will only help their legal case. It looks like the US military may have a new advantage over China in the Pacific. It has to do with a new drone delivery service that could help supply US troops in the event of a war between the two countries. I'd wonder if soldiers will get deliveries from Arby's instead of army rations. I'm not sure it would be good to fight with a belly full of fast food. The CCP continues to conduct numerous joint readiness exercises in or near Taiwan's waters and airspace, engaging its Air Force and Navy. Taiwan's top security officials have said Beijing will continue to ramp up and intensify these exercises around the inauguration of Lai Ching as Taiwan's new president on May 20. China is definitely acting like an ex who shows up at an ex's wedding and loudly turns on the heavy metal. It's over, Xi Jinping. It's time to move on. And here's some bad news for Taipei. It looks like Russia is planning to help China in the event of an attack on the island. What? Russia invading a sovereign nation? No. What's next? You're going to tell me that Putin has weathered nipples from constant nude photo shoots in the cold? At a recent congressional hearing, U.S. intelligence officials said that China and Russia are ramping up military cooperation, including plans for Taiwan. The director of the Defense Intelligence Agency even said, basically, if we have a conflict with one of them, we're likely to have a second front. China is already helping Russia in its war against Ukraine. So it's like a you scratch my back and I'll scratch your situation. Yes, because Russia is currently such a valuable military ally. If you want allies that produce suicide tanks that only blow themselves up. Very effective. Speaking of Russia and China's borderless partnership, Xi Jinping continues to say his country is neutral in the Russia-Ukraine war, but at the same time, peace talks must include Russia's position, so it's not so much boundless friendship as I've got your back, but only slightly, because being your friend isn't much of a bargain right now, kid. Xi Jinping is on a trip to Europe, and many old world leaders are trying to convince him to take a tougher stance on Russia. But while they do so, Xi continues to insist that China is neutral and that the West should instead pressure Ukraine to make concessions. I wonder what concessions he wants Taiwan to make. And if you thought Taiwan was the only one tolerating molestation by China in the Pacific, you were wrong. Australia is complaining about a dangerous Chinese sonar attack against one of its HMAS Toowoomba ships. I too am baffled that the CCP decided to attack this ship. With a name like that, who could feel threatened? The incident took place in contested international waters near Australia. What a shock! China is contesting another stretch of free ocean. Is there any body of water they don't claim? I wouldn't be surprised if they next want to invade San Diego and shout, "SeaWorld is ours." Ironically, Australian Vice Admiral Mark Hammond raised this incident with Commander-in-Chief Hu Zhongming at a symposium in China called Seas of a Common Future. Speaking of China and security, the Chinese Communist Party continues its stunning string of quality infrastructure projects, one of which resulted in a highway collapse that killed 48 people. Recent heavy rains are believed to be to blame. While there could have been many more casualties, one Chinese driver is being praised for helping to reduce the death toll. He used his car to block other cars from falling into the resulting hole, and his wife got out and alerted other drivers to what was happening. The Chinese Workers' Development Foundation and Alibaba Group Holdings awarded the man about $1,400, which he later donated to the victims' families. Because while the communist regime of the PRC is horrible and evil, that doesn't mean all Chinese are like that. CNN reporter and author Fareed Zakaria criticized Republicans for standing up to China, calling the strategy reckless and dangerous. Zakaria warned of the dangers of containing China as the US would likely find itself alone if it went for it. Then I wonder how the Quadro Security Dialogue in ADK-US came to be, and what are all these US-led joint naval exercises about, or how the whole world rallied to prevent Huawei from building its 5G networks everywhere. Also, the Biden administration is continuing most of the Trump-era policies toward China, almost as if it's not just a Republican strategy. In the Maldives, which is here for those Americans who aren't strong on geography, President Mohammed Saleh's party won a stunning victory in recent parliamentary elections, which was also seen as a strong endorsement of his plans to distance the Maldives from India and move closer to China. The outgoing opposition parties in parliament opposed the Chinese-funded infrastructure projects Saleh plans to undertake. No doubt Beijing will want to use the Maldives as a springboard to further promote the One Belt, One Road projects and contain its rival India. China is building up its space capabilities and sending a rocket to the backside of the moon. Isn't it interesting that China always launches rockets to the backside of the moon where no one can see them and then claims that they have discovered something amazing there? The unmanned Chang'e 6 rocket launched from the Wenchun Cosmodrome, a 53-day mission to deliver samples from the dark side of the moon. But also on board was Pakistan's first lunar mission with a satellite. How nice that they are working together with a shared vision to export Xi Jinping's ideas to the Martians. No wonder aliens don't want to visit us. Xi Jinping is using China's space program to reach even deeper into the global south. Xi Jinping has high hopes for promoting joint space cooperation and exploration, especially in the Caribbean and Latin America, because it's not at all like the CCP wants to use such research in the vicinity of the US for espionage or anything like that. Hopefully, economic cooperation works out better than it did in Sri Lanka. And for any Martians watching this video, if the PDA suggests you build something, just say balalika, 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 balalika. That in Martian means that would be a solid no for me, kid. But not all is rosy for China and the global south. And the US has certain ways to contain China without resorting to regime change. Debts to China worry some Central Asian countries, such as Kyrgyzstan. That country's total debt to China since 1991 is a fabulous $6.2 billion. That's 45% of its GDP. At least they got some quality Chinese infrastructure. And the due date for these previously deferred payments is about to come. Beijing has already rejected Kyrgyzstan's request for an additional deferral. And anti-Chinese sentiment is high in Kyrgyzstan. There have been protests against Chinese investment in the country in 2019 and 2020. Let's hope the situation works out better for them than it did for Sri Lanka. And this is one of the reasons why the United States is working with the Philippines to develop an alternative infrastructure project to China's One Belt, One Road initiative. Recall that the Philippines withdrew from China's BRI project a few months ago. Tensions between China and the Philippines are at their peak right now, so China is trying to reduce them by firing water cannons at Filipino fishermen. The project, called the Luzon Corridor, is the first of its kind, a series of investment projects alternative to China's Belt and Road. It is designed to deepen ties between the U.S. and its regional allies, as well as improve Southeast Asian infrastructure. President Biden announced the move while hosting Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at the White House. Yes, Japan is also participating. China's going to love it. The U.S. and Japan will provide funding for technology in the Philippines that will improve wireless connectivity throughout the region. As the BRI project unravels, sometimes literally, this seems like the best way for Washington to contain China's rise, or rather cushion its fall. And contrary to what CNN says, both political sides can agree on that. Thanks for watching. Get like, subscribe to the channel, and take care.